What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses goes head-to-head with one of television's most controversial hosts? You're about to find out. Because what transpired between Julia Roberts and Joy Behar on The View became one of the most talked-about television moments of the year. Julia Roberts had come to the show to promote her latest film, a heartfelt drama about working mothers balancing career and family. What should have been a routine promotional appearance quickly turned into something much darker. When Joy Behar decided to make things personal, the tension in the studio was thick from the moment Julia walked onto the set. With her usual charm and warmth, she greeted the co-hosts. But Joy's expression already hinted that this would not be a friendly interview. So, Joy began with that trademark smirk that longtime viewers recognized. Your new movie is about working mothers, but let's talk about your real life. You've been married 3 times now, and some people are saying maybe you're not the best example of stability for working mothers to look up to. The air shifted immediately. The other co-hosts shifted uncomfortably, and Whoopi Goldberg shot Joy a warning look. But Joy was clearly on the offensive. Julia's smile faltered for just a moment before she regained her composure. Well, Joy, I think my personal life is separate from the message of this film, which is really about supporting women in all their endeavors, whether that's in the workplace or at home. But Joy wasn't backing down. Is it really separate? She pressed, leaning forward like a shark smelling blood. You're asking mothers to spend their hard-earned money to see you portray something that, let's be honest, you haven't exactly mastered yourself. The audience began to murmur. Sensing that something raw and unscripted was happening, Sarah N. tried to steer the conversation toward a lighter topic, asking about Julia's co-stars, but Joy bulldozed right over her. And speaking of your marriages, she continued with relish. Your current husband was married to someone else when you started dating him, wasn't he? Some might call that home-wrecking behavior. How do you reconcile that with playing these morally upstanding characters? Julia's famous megawatt smile vanished entirely. Her tone sharpened. Joy, I came here to talk about a film that celebrates women supporting each other. Instead, you're trying to tear me down with gossip and half-truths. Is this really what The View has become? Half-truths. Joy laughed a sharp, humorless sound. These are facts, Julia. Public record. Your first marriage lasted less than 2 years. Your second ended when you left your husband for a married man. And now you want to lecture American women about family values. The tension was unbearable. The other co-hosts were motioning frantically for the producers to cut to commercial. Whoopi made throat-slashing gestures to end it, but the cameras kept rolling. The producers knew they had television gold. Julia straightened in her chair, gripping the armrests. You know what, Joy? I've been in this business for over 30 years. And I've dealt with my share of bullies and small-minded people who try to build themselves up by tearing others down. But I've never sat across from someone so desperate for relevance that they did a guest with personal attacks just to get a few headlines. Ambush. Joy's voice rose, indignant. This is journalism, sweetheart. Maybe you're just not used to someone asking you real questions instead of kissing your famous behind. The studio fell silent. Even the crew had stopped moving. Julia leaned forward slightly, her voice low and icy. Journalism. Is that what you call this character assassination masquerading as an interview? Real journalists do their homework. Joy. They ask informed questions about the work, not tabloid gossip designed to humiliate their guests. Joy rolled her eyes. But for the first time, she didn't have a comeback ready. The room hung heavy with silence. Julia stood, gave a curt nod to Whoopi, and walked off set as security quietly stepped forward to manage the chaos. What had begun as a simple press appearance had exploded into a moment no one in that studio, or watching at home would ever forget. Joy waved her hand dismissively. her tone cutting through the thick tension in the room. "Don't try to high-road me with your holier-than-thou attitude," she snapped. "You're an actress, not Mother Teresa. You play pretend for a living and get paid millions for it. The least you can do is answer honest questions about your very public personal life." Julia let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Honest questions," she echoed. "There's nothing honest about what you're doing here. This is a hit job, plain and simple. And, frankly, I'm embarrassed for you that this is what you think passes for meaningful television." Joy's face turned red with frustration. She clearly hadn't expected Julia to push back so hard. "You know what? Maybe if you weren't so sensitive about your past choices, you could handle a little scrutiny. But I guess when you're used to everyone treating you like Hollywood royalty, being asked real questions feels like an attack." Julia leaned forward slightly, her patience finally cracking. "Real questions," she repeated, her voice rising. "You want to know what real questions look like, Joy? How about asking why you feel the need to attack other women to make yourself feel better? Or why you think tearing down successful women is entertainment?" The atmosphere in the studio grew explosive. Joy's face twisted with anger at Julia's words. "How dare you?" she shouted, slamming her hand on the desk so hard that her coffee mug rattled. "I've been doing this for decades while you were still waiting tables in Georgia. Don't you dare question my integrity or my methods." Julia, in stark contrast, remained composed, her voice cool and steady. "Integrity. Joy, you've spent the last 10 minutes trying to humiliate me on national television with personal attacks that have nothing to do with why I'm here. If that's your definition of integrity, then we clearly have very different value systems." Value systems. Joy's voice rose to a shrill pitch, all traces of professionalism gone. "That's rich coming from someone who built her career, playing America's sweetheart while behaving like anything but behind the scenes." Whoopi Goldberg finally stepped in, her tone firm but cautious. "Joy, maybe we should take a step back here," but Joy cut her off, not even looking in her direction. "No, Whoopi. I'm tired of these Hollywood prima donnas coming on our show thinking they can control the narrative. This is The View, not Entertainment Tonight." Julia's eyes flashed with anger, her composure slipping just slightly. "Prima donna. I've been nothing but respectful since I walked onto this set. You're the one who decided to ambush me with tabloid garbage instead of having a real conversation about the work?" Joy laughed bitterly. "The work? Your work is playing dress-up and reading lines someone else wrote for you. My work is asking the tough questions that other people are too scared to ask." Julia's voice rose for the first time, sharp and clear. "There's nothing tough about gossip. Joy, tough questions are about the themes of the film, about working mothers in America, about the challenges women face in Hollywood. What you're doing isn't tough. It's cruel." The other co-hosts sat frozen in their seats, visibly uncomfortable as the tension reached a breaking point. The studio, once filled with polite applause and bright laughter, now felt like a battlefield. Sarah N. was practically hiding behind her notes while Sunny Hostin looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. The producers were frantically talking into their headsets, but no one seemed willing to pull the plug on what was quickly becoming the most explosive segment in the show's history. Joy leaned back in her chair with a smug smirk. "Oh, so now I'm cruel because I won't pretend your personal life doesn't matter when you're trying to sell tickets to a family movie," she taunted. Julia's eyes flashed. "My personal life has nothing to do with this film," she shot back. "But since you're so fascinated with personal lives, let's talk about yours. How many co-hosts have quit this show because of the toxic work environment you've created? How many guests have sworn never to come back because of the way you treat people?" Joy's smirk vanished instantly. "That's completely inappropriate," she snapped. "This interview is about you, not me." Julia tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Really? I thought this was about asking tough questions. Or do those only apply when you're the one asking them?" The tension in the room was suffocating. Camera operators zoomed in, capturing every twitch and glare on their faces as the audience sat frozen, unable to look away from the live implosion unfolding before their eyes. Joy's voice dropped to a low, dangerous growl. "You know what your problem is, Julia. You think your movie star status makes you untouchable. Well, here's a newsflash sure. Just another celebrity with a messy personal life trying to sell us something." Julia stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the studio floor. "And you know what your problem is, Joy? You're a bitter woman who's built a career on tearing other women down. You're so threatened by successful women that you can't help but try to destroy them." Joy was on her feet now too, her eyes blazing. "Threatened? Don't flatter yourself," she snapped. "You're just trying to stay relevant with a feel-good movie nobody's going to see." The words hit like a slap. Julia's face went pale, then flushed crimson. "Has been?" she hissed. "I've won more awards and touched more lives with my work than you ever will with your mean-spirited rants on this third-rate talk show." "Third-rate." Joy's voice cracked with fury. "This show has been on the air for over 20 years. It's an institution. You're just another flash in the pan who got lucky with a few romantic comedies." Julia let out a cold laugh. "Lucky? I've worked my entire life to get where I am. I've earned every role, every accolade, every moment of success through talent and dedication." "What have you earned, Joy, besides a reputation as the nastiest person on daytime television?" The other co-hosts were now in visible panic. Whoopi Goldberg was signaling frantically to the control room, while Sarah whispered urgently to a producer at the edge of the set. But Julia and Joy were locked in their verbal war, oblivious to everything else. Joy pointed a trembling finger at Julia. "At least I'm authentic," she shouted. "I don't put on a fake smile and pretend to be someone I'm not. I tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable." Julia's expression hardened. "Authentic," she repeated, her voice dripping with contempt. "There's nothing authentic about being cruel for entertainment. There's nothing truthful about attacking people just to boost your ego. You're not a truth teller. Joy, you're a bully with a microphone." The word bully seemed to strike a nerve. Joy's face contorted with rage, and she stepped around the desk toward Julia. "How dare you call me a bully? I'm the one asking the questions that need to be asked while everyone else kisses celebrity ass." Julia didn't back away. If anything, she took a step closer, her voice low and cutting. "You want to know what questions need to be asked? Here's one: what kind of person uses their platform to humiliate guests for ratings? What kind of journalist attacks someone's personal life instead of discussing their work?" The two women now stood face to face across the desk, their voices echoing through the dead silent studio. Joy's face was crimson as she spat out her next words. "You think you're so clever with your little speeches, but I know exactly what you are. You're a manipulative actress who's used men to climb the ladder, and now you want to play the victim when someone calls you out." Julia's eyes narrowed. "Used men. Is that your professional opinion, Dr. Behar? Or are you just projecting your own insecurities onto me because deep down, you know everything I've said about you is true?" Joy let out a harsh, barking laugh. "The only thing I'm insecure about is having to share a set with someone who thinks she's too good to answer honest questions about her very public mistakes." Julia's voice rose to meet Joy's, sharp and fiery. "My mistakes are learning experiences. Joy, your mistakes are broadcast to millions every day. The mistake of thinking cruelty is journalism. The mistake of believing tearing people down makes you important." Joy slammed her palm onto the desk, sending pens and papers flying. Important? Honey, I've been important since before you were even famous. I was doing real television when you were still waiting for your big break. Julia laughed coldly. Real television. This isn't real television, Joy. This is a circus and you're the main clown. Real television would mean asking me about the message of empowerment in my film, about the struggles of working mothers, about something meaningful. Instead, you chose to attack my personal relationships like some gossip columnist. At this point, chaos had completely overtaken the set. Whoopi spoke urgently into her earpiece while Sarah and Sunny sat frozen, looking as though they were witnessing a car crash in slow motion. Producers hovered at the edge of the stage, arguing about whether to cut the feed or let the spectacle continue. Joy's voice, now laced with venom, cut through the noise. You want to know what's meaningful? Holding public figures accountable for their actions, instead of treating them like royalty just because they're famous. Julia's voice cracked with anger. Accountable for what? Joy. For being human. For making personal choices that have nothing to do with my work. You're not holding anyone accountable. You're just being vindictive because you can. The words hung heavy in the air, echoing across the silent studio as two powerful women stood locked in a battle neither was willing to lose. Joy stepped closer, her face twisted with contempt. I'm being honest, she sneered, her voice dripping with venom. Something you clearly wouldn't recognize if it hit you in your perfectly surgically enhanced face. The studio gasped collectively. Even for Joy Behar, this was crossing a line that nobody had expected. Julia's mouth fell open in disbelief before her expression hardened into something sharp and dangerous. Did you just attack my appearance on national television? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, yet somehow carrying across the entire room. Joy seemed to realize she had gone too far, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. I'm just saying that maybe someone who's had as much work done as you have shouldn't be lecturing the rest of us about authenticity. She replied coldly. The silence that followed was deafening. Julia stood still for a long moment, her eyes locked on Joy. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, but cutting like ice. You know what, Joy? I've dealt with difficult people throughout my entire career. I've worked with demanding directors, egotistical co-stars, and ruthless producers. But I have never, in 30 years in this business, encountered anyone as unprofessional, as cruel, and as pathetically insecure as you are right now. Joy's face turned purple with fury. How dare you call me insecure? You're the one who can't handle a few tough questions without falling apart. Julia's composure cracked completely. Tough questions. She repeated, her voice trembling with anger. You want tough questions. Here's one for you, Joy. When you go home tonight and look in the mirror, are you proud of what you see? Are you proud that you used your platform today to humiliate a guest? Are you proud that you turned what should have been a discussion about empowering women into a personal attack? Joy was breathing heavily now, her hands shaking with rage. Don't you dare try to turn this around on me, she shouted. You came on this show knowing exactly what kind of questions we ask here. Julia's tone was sharp and unyielding. I came on this show expecting professional journalism, not a personal vendetta disguised as an interview. And do you know what the saddest part is? You had an opportunity today to have a meaningful conversation about issues that matter to women across America. Instead, you chose to be petty, mean-spirited, and cruel. That's not journalism. Joy, that's just sad. The word sad seemed to be the final straw for Joy. She pointed a trembling finger at Julia and screamed, "Get out! Get out of my studio right now!" Julia stared at her in disbelief. Your studio? This isn't your studio, Joy. This is supposed to be a place for meaningful discourse, not your personal attack platform. Joy's voice cracked as she screamed louder. I said, get out. Security. I want her removed from the set immediately." The entire studio froze in stunned silence. Whoopi finally stood up, her voice firm and authoritative. "Joy, what are you doing? You can't just kick a guest off the show." Joy turned to her, snarling, "Watch me. I'm not going to sit here and be lectured by some washed-up actress who thinks she's better than everyone else." Julia gathered her purse slowly, her movements deliberate and composed, despite the chaos erupting around her. "You're right about one thing, Joy," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I am better than this. Better than participating in whatever this pathetic display is supposed to be." Two security guards appeared at the edge of the set, clearly unsure of what to do. The producers were whispering frantically, torn between stopping the disaster and realizing they were capturing television gold. Joy was still shouting, her voice hoarse. "That's right. Run away, just like you always do when someone calls you out on your BS." Julia stopped walking and turned back to face her one final time. Her voice was steady, controlled, and filled with pure disdain. "I'm not running away, Joy. I'm choosing not to dignify this circus with my presence any longer. There's a difference, though. I don't expect you to understand it. Don't you dare walk away from me." Joy shrieked. "I'm not done with you yet." Julia gave a cold smile. "Oh, but I'm done with you, completely and utterly done. And I think America will be done with you, too. After they see how you behave today." She turned and walked toward the exit, her heels clicking with authority across the studio floor as Joy's voice continued to echo behind her. "Good riddance. Don't bother coming back. This show doesn't need pretentious actresses who can't handle real questions." Julia paused at the edge of the set and called back without turning around. "Real questions require real journalists. Joy, maybe someday you'll figure out the difference." With that, Julia Roberts walked off the View set, leaving behind a studio and chaos co-hosts frozen in stunned silence and Joy Behar still screaming at an empty chair. The cameras kept rolling as Joy's tirade continued, her fury unchecked and her reputation unraveling in real time. Whoopi was frantically trying to get her to stop, but Joy was beyond reason now. "Let her go," Joy panted finally, collapsing back into her chair. "We don't need people like that on this show anyway." But as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in when she saw the horrified faces of her co-hosts and the frantic movement of the producers, Joy Behar began to realize that she might have just made the biggest mistake of her television career. What was supposed to be a simple movie promotion had turned into a career-defining disaster. Julia Roberts had walked away with her dignity intact, while Joy was left sitting in the wreckage of her own making. The cameras had captured everything, the anger, the insults, and the implosion, and by the time the footage reached the public, the world would see exactly what happens when professionalism goes out the window on live television.